Hello and welcome to the Business Lounge. Now, you're probably used to seeing somebody else sat here, like Blair Jacobs. Blair's done a lot of work in television and radio on a regional basis. And I'm joined here by him today, sat in somebody else's seat now, Blair.
Which feels very strange.
Really?
Yes.
So, Blair, what I'd like to talk to you about today is to try and give some insight, maybe some tips and tricks about people that have to stand up and be talking in front of people, or television or radio. When you was young, how did you come to terms with that?
I remember my first radio broadcast, my first live radio broadcast, and I was terrified. It was Sunday night, 7 o'clock, local radio in Lancashire, and it was the graveyard slot. You know, people getting ready for the week, and they were doing anything really but listening to the radio. A very small amount of radio audience at that time. And I put the red light on because, you know, it's not like network radio where everything's done for you. You drive your own desk, as they say. And it was like talking to a giant answer machine. Because you say hello, and of course you expect people to say hello, but no one does. And it was the weirdest experience I think I'd ever done. Despite the fact I practiced, when you did it for real, it's totally alien.
And how long did that last for? How long was that slot for you first?
2 hours.
2 hours?
2 hours.
I mean, that's a long time to fill, isn't it? Was there a lot of songs in that? Or?
Yeah, an awful lot of songs in that one. Yeah, an awful lot of songs. I mean, I met some great people through it. Labby Sifri was a guy I met through that as well, because I happened to get his number and rang him and said, will you come on? And he said, yeah, all right, no problem. So there was some really odd things, really brilliant things as well that you can get to do when you're doing radio.
And with the radio, when you'd finished, how did you feel afterwards?
Elated. Oh, absolutely elated. I'd recorded it. And I've still got the recording somewhere on big reel-to-reel. You'd be lucky to find a reel-to-reel player to play it on nowadays. But that was 1994. That was my first radio programme.
And then, where did you move from then?
I was 6 months at Radio Lancashire with the BBC, and then I was asked to go and do the early breakfast show, which is a weekday breakfast show down in Southampton for BBC Radio Solent. Did that for about 18 months, and then there was an opportunity to come to Hull to work at BBC Radio Humberside for 3 months. It was a 3-month attachment on loan, if you like, for 3 months doing a drive time show. And 15 years later, I'm still in Yorkshire, and I'm still working at BBC Radio Humberside, albeit now as a freelance. Yeah,
because you really made that. I think it was the lunchtime slot you did on that, didn't you, Blair?
You did that for 4 years. Yeah, I did that for the last 4 years.
Own.
It was good. One of the great things about radio and television is the opportunity to meet people and the opportunity to get people's opinions and to banter with them, to argue with them, but always at the end of a phone call to say, you know, really good talking to you. That's your opinion. This is my opinion. And to put people together and have a bit of a row was great fun. And it was an enormous privilege to do what was called the soapbox on BBC Radio Humberside. It was 2 hours, and I never went in there with a script. Went in there with a bunch of newspapers, a few ideas about what we could talk about, switch the telephones on and see what happened and see who called. And thank goodness people called.
Yeah, it was fabulous. So you said that the first time that you went into the radio station, you were absolutely terrified. How did it get easier? What do you think that you did that made it easier?
It's like anything, Graham. You just get used to it.
It's really practice then?
Yeah, of course it's practice, yes. You get used to being in a room that's full of computers. You get used to being in a room that has this big desk with lots of faders on it and level monitors and red lights and green lights and blue lights. You just get used to it. It's like someone walking into an office. You know, if you walk into a really imposing looking office, the first time you walk in there you think, oh, blimey, you know, big mahogany desk and wonderful bookcase and library and this, that and the other. Well, actually, 2 days, 3 days after you've walked in there and spent all day in there, you get used to being in that environment.
Yeah.
How you get used to the broadcasting is a different thing, and everybody has their own way of doing that.
Yeah, I was going to come on to that. So we was doing the radio, and then a break then occurred for television, because, you know, you've done some television work.
I did television, I did Look North, the regional bulletins in Look North for 7 years.
And so after you'd finished doing the radio, well, you were still doing the radio, then you went on air on television. Was you like scared to death again?
That was learning a completely new process. That was very different, because the thing about radio is that you can turn up in jeans and a t-shirt and not bother shaving. No one can see you. Doesn't matter. You've often joked with me, I've got the face for radio, and you're absolutely right. You know, it doesn't matter what you look like, as long as you sound okay and you know what you're talking about. Then people always build up a different image of you.
Yeah.
In television, people can see you. And the most frustrating thing is you can't see them. It's like that answer machine thing again. You don't know. You're talking to a camera. You're talking to one lens there. And you just got to hope that you look all right, and that whoever's doing your makeup, if they've done it, has done it right. And you can be as vain as you like, or you can have a load of bravado and say, you know, it doesn't matter, that's fine. But the BBC had an image. The BBC has a look of smart, courteous, friendly-looking people. Why they chose me, I don't know. But I mean, they did. But it was having to relearn. But again, I spent a lot of time in the studio. You know, the Look North studio in Hull, where I worked, is a big studio and lots of bright lights, and it gets very hot. And there are 3 big cameras on tripods. And again, it's that imposing office scenario. You walk in and you just think, wow. And my first few broadcasts, I am sure I look like a rabbit caught in headlights.
Yeah.
You know, because it's, oh, right, here is the news.
I mean, I can actually confirm to everybody out there that since we've been producing a lot of the videos on this site, that I've tried using auto-cue, and auto-cue is really difficult. However, Blair did it as it was just a walk in the park, so it's got to be down to practice, I think. There.
Well, you've run several successful companies. You make it look easy because you've done it. You've been there and done it. But you've been there and done it, and that's the difference. You know, we're in business, 2 separate businesses. I'm practiced at mine and you're practiced at yours. That's all of it. It all comes. Television, being a broadcaster is certainly not rocket science. If it was, I couldn't do it. There's no way. It's about practice. It's about getting comfortable in your environment. You would feel uncomfortable if you walked into a fully scaled up television studio now. But if you did that every day for 2 weeks and you did a 7-minute news bulletin that you knew was live and you read auto-cue doing that bulletin, then, you know, 2-3 weeks' time, you may not be completely comfortable with it because it does take time, but you'd be a lot more happy. And, you know, I'm sure many people will know this anyway, is that the presenter normally has an earpiece. There are presenters that refuse to wear them, but has an earpiece. And I remember I had to choose which ear I wanted my earpiece in, because it does affect, you can actually, almost left ear and right ear, you know, left-handed and right-handed,
yeah.
You can concentrate more if it's in one ear than it's in the other, and you have to choose which ear you want it in. And you go and have the earpiece moulded, and it's fitted properly, and you go and you plug it in. And every time that you go on television, you will always have the sound of the voices in what they call the gallery, the control room for the television. Yeah. Which is why the gallery is normally a very quiet place anyway, because it has what they call an open mic policy, so the presenter can hear you and can hear the director saying, you have to go to this piece now, or the worst case scenario is a piece of tape breaks, or the video goes down, or the computer crashes, and you have to change scripts. And that is told to you through your ear. In the meantime, you are still delivering the news. You're still telling the story that comes before the one that is now no longer there. So you have to read the news and understand it and sound authoritative and with the level of gravitas that you're meant to deliver the news with. At the same time, the director in your ear could be going, we've lost the next 2 stories, we're now 30 seconds light, you must fill for 2 seconds while we get the next computer up and running.
Yeah.
And then you have to think, at the same time as delivering the news, I have to fill, so what do I say? Radio, you can say, radio is a much more informal medium.
Or put the radio on, put some music on.
Put the music on. You can always put the music on live radio, but it's that much more informal. Radio is almost like wallpaper. It can be in the background. You can sit and listen to it, but most of the time, it's on in the background while you're working, while you're at leisure, while you're doing the ironing, while you're washing the car. Could be anything. Television, people concentrate on television. They switch the television on to watch it. It's very seldom on just in the background, and that's why you can't get away with that. It's a more formal medium.
No, it's a terrible thing to do. Just going back to that thing that was doing on the World News with the earpiece in, I know how difficult that is, because I've just remembered I was sat there and I couldn't hear them properly because there's a lot of noise going on in the office, and the earpiece wasn't that particularly loud. And I can remember them turning around and saying, they'd ask me a question like, so if people come down and see you when you walk the Humber, if they come down and see you walk the Humber, will they have to pay? And I thought they said, if they come down and see your number, what day? So it says, will they have to pay? And I went, Sunday.
But it's true, it
And
happens.
that was it.
But it happens.
It's just like, I didn't, and then they had to repeat it again.
Yeah.
But most businesses out there, Blair, to be fair, won't maybe get to experience radio and television. However, a lot of people that network may have to stand up and talk in front of people. Now, you are a very good orator it being in front of people. And more recently, Blair, you've been asked by local businesses to help with them, not just to deliver television, but more the skills of actually talking to large groups of people. How's that going?
It's going really well, and I love it, actually. I formed a company with my wife called Blair Jacobs Communications. Her background is international HR, and she's a qualified neuro-linguistic programmer. She's a trainer, if you like, and can help people develop businesses and communication skills as well. And what we do is, just as you've said, we help people communicate more effectively. You know, you can use the old cliche of very few people are natural communicators, and you only get one chance to make a first impression and things like that. But it's absolutely true. And one of the things that we try and do, one of the courses that we do, is called Business Communications, and it takes people through a step-by-step guide, if you like, through video presentation of how to communicate more effectively. And it's not just to a big conference or even to the boardroom. It's how you network. I mean, you know how important networking is. I know how important networking is. How do you make that impression? What do you do when you go into a room and it's full of people, most of whom you really could do with talking to, but you don't know how to make the first move, other than saying hello? Then what do you do? And it's all about helping people gain confidence in how they communicate.
I think as well, people don't like going up to people at first because the fear of rejection.
Yeah, it's all about the fear of rejection. When I was at school, I wouldn't even, at lunchtime, I wouldn't even go up and get a glass of water. We had big tables full of the water and the milk and drinks and things like that at lunchtimes. And you used to go out and help yourself if you wanted more. I wouldn't do it because I was certain that the other 500 pupils that were at that school were all watching me. I was that insecure about myself and that introverted, I wouldn't do it. Now I'm teaching people how to do it, which is, for me, I find that extraordinary, but I love doing it. But it is all about, you're right, it's all about the fear of rejection. The worst thing that can happen is someone can say, no, thank you very much. Well, you've tried.
Yeah.
But the chances are, if they're at the network meeting and you're at the network meeting, they want to meet you. They want, if nothing else, to give you their business card and get yours so they can start talking to you. It may end up that you don't do business, but actually, is it worth the risk?
What else does Blair Jacobs Communications do?
Oh, we do a range of things. We deal a lot with customer services as well. We teach best customer service, how to deal with customers, how to deal with difficult customers. We teach a lot of receptionist skills, telephone training skills, and also the media training. I mean, I've taken my background in the media with me as well, and we do a lot of media training courses. Really very senior business people, and I've fortunately been able to help them because they sit there and think, sorry, no, I don't do radio, I don't do I don't want to see myself, no, crikey. And they turn interviews down, they turn PR opportunities down, because every time you go on radio or television, it's brand awareness for your business. It's PR, it's marketing. And if it's on the BBC, you can't buy that sort of advertising. You can't buy advertising on the BBC. So if you get on the BBC and you get, Joe Blogs from so-and-so marketing, or Joe Blogs so-and-so products, it's just brand awareness.
Oh, yeah.
So you cannot, every opportunity should be taken to get onto the media, even if it's just a firefighting, if it's trying to deal with bad news as well. So media training is absolutely vital. And all I try and do is give people a bit of an insight to break down some of the barriers. And basically, it's just two people talking. It's one person interviewing, and then you or whoever it is who is being interviewed. But another word for an interview is a conversation, which is all we're having now.
Yeah, fantastic. I hope a lot of people will have learned a lot from that interview. If you do need any help, give them a ring. Blair Jacobs, thank you very much.
Thank you, Graham.